Hello beautiful, my name is Mina. Welcome to my channel, Mina Reads. I have not done a wrap up in a really long time, so I'm very much out of practice, but today I'm going to be sharing with you all the books that I read in August and September. So let's talk about these books, babes. So I started my August off by reading some fantasy, and I was continuing on with this fantasy series which is called the Tarot Sequence. So the second book in that series is called The Hanged Man, and I also read the third book, which is called The Hourglass Throne. This is a urban fantasy series that is set in a magical city called New Atlantis, where there is this hierarchical system that is based on the tarot deck. So our main character, Rune, is the heir to the Sun Court, and so his house has faced ruin after being raided some years ago. So a lot of their wealth and power has been destroyed, and so Rune is kind of working his way towards regaining his power and position in this magical society that he exists in. And it also involves a storyline where Rune is trying to figure out who raided his family's estate when he was younger, and who killed his parents and why, what their motivations were. And so a lot of the storylines that the book deals with, it deals with separate mystery storylines. The first book deals with a kidnapping and Rune is investigating it. The second book deals with Rune and his best friend Bran. They're looking for this missing child, and all these different types of mysteries that pop up in each installment, which are a little bit different, but they all kind of intersect and connect to this grander conspiracy that's going on. It's such a fun, inventive fantasy series, and I absolutely adore it. I really love the characters in this. It has a really great found family aspect, and it's just so amazing and wonderful. It's also delightfully queer. Pretty much all of the protagonists are queer. There's some non-binary characters in this. They're side characters, but they are really cool, fun people. And I have just enjoyed this series so much as it progresses. With each book, it gets better and better. So I give the first book in the series 3 stars maybe, because I felt like the world was a little, I don't know, the world was a little bit iffy. I didn't feel like the world building was that great, but once I got to the second book, I was really into it. I was meshing with it a whole lot better, so I gave this one a 4 star. And the last one, The Hourglass Throne, was absolutely incredible. A lot of the main arc of this story kind of comes to a head in that book, and it's just so much incredible stuff going on there. This is an ongoing series, but the first 3 books were absolutely excellent. I will highly recommend it. It's just so good, okay? So check it out. So those were the first 2 books that I read in August. And then I read Heartstopper Volume 4. Heartstopper, which I feel like everybody knows about, is this really sweet graphic novel series about these 2 young high school boys, Nick and Charlie, and this is about their love story, their coming out, their mental health struggles, and all that stuff, as well as this really wonderful friend group that they have, and they're just navigating high school together. It's very sweet. It's very beautiful and warm and loving, but it is about, teens navigating the difficulties of their teen years and being queer and coming out and finding community. And I just really love this series so much. It makes me very happy. And this 4th installment was really great because it kind of provide some closure to a really intense storyline that was going on regarding one of the main characters having an eating disorder, and so I felt good about where the storyline ended up there. And I just love this series so much. I'm really glad that I got around to reading it after watching season 2 of the show on Netflix. So then I read this manga, which is called Kowloon Generic Romance, and this is a story about a young woman. She works as a realtor, and this is pretty much about her navigating her day-to-day life and the minutiae and finding all of these different small joys. And she has this crush on one of her coworkers, and it's sort of about her navigating her life and her crush on this person. It was an interesting slice of life story that has widened a lot in scope by the end of the story. So I am excited to read volume 2. I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but hopefully soon. But I thought it was pretty cool. I really like the art style in this one. So would I recommend it? I mean, sure, it was pretty cool. It wasn't amazing to me, but it was pretty cool, and I am interested in seeing how things are going to develop with it. Then we have Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez, and this is about 2 ER doctors, Brianna and Jacob, and they both are working in the same unit. They get off on the wrong foot when Jacob has his first day in the ER, and things are just not really going right for them. So Jacob, who has a lot of social anxiety, decides to write Brianna a letter to sort of clear things up and make his intentions known because he doesn't have any bad intentions, and he wants them to be friends and to be cordial. And so this is a story about how they develop like a relationship, a friendship, and this turns into a fake dating situation where Jacob is trying to get his family off his back because they're really concerned about him and his dating life because his ex-girlfriend left him for his brother, which is so crazy. So this is like a fake dating story between them. It deals with some other intense like family stuff where Brianna is dealing with an ailing family member. There's a lot of stuff going on there. I have to say that I really enjoyed the first half of this book. It was really great. I think the writing was great. The banter was good. I really enjoyed Brianna and Jacob as characters, but for me personally, the way that the story ended up just did not work for me. I found it really, really irritating. It was just a lot of inner monologuing and a lot of angst and a lot of miscommunication. And I'm not saying that those things have to be bad on an objective level, but subjectively for me, it just irritated me more and more the more the story went on. And so yeah, it just didn't end up being like my favorite thing that I've ever read. But it is like, Abby Jimenez has so much talent as a writer, and she did such a good job writing like the dynamic between Jacob and Brianna, but I wish I ended up loving this story more than I did. Then, on a more positive note, I read Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood, and I absolutely adored this book. So, Love Theoretically is about this girl named Elsie, and she is a physicist, and she wants a research position at MIT, so she is interviewing. And when she gets to her interview, she realizes that one of the people on her interviewing panel is the brother of a client that she's had in the past, and she does like this side gig as a fake girlfriend, but it lands her in an awkward position with this potential employer pretty much. And so yeah, this is about her and the guy Jack, who is on the interviewing panel, and just them getting to know each other and clearing up this miscommunication, and also just about Elsie, her journey as like a woman in STEM and the guidance that she's receiving, and like just her career stuff. And it deals a lot with the way that academia like underpays and undervalues people who are not working like on the tenure track, and it's really interesting in a lot of different ways. But I just love this romance so much. If you like the boy obsessed trope, you will adore this book. It's just so fun and funny, and I just had a really great time with it. And I think this is the best book that Ali Hazelwood has written thus far, and it's definitely my favorite, so I would highly recommend it. It was a good time. Okay, so then in August, I also read some nonfiction. Wild, I know, not my usual thing. And I have been working my way through that book pretty much all summer. It's a really, really interesting nonfiction book if you're trying to do like some internal work and you're trying to analyze the relationship that you have with your parents. But I think that it was very helpful because it was really balanced. It wasn't all about blaming or shaming your parents. It's just really giving you like some guidance and some clarity. I know that for me personally, I have been grappling with some stuff that has happened to me in my life and in my childhood, and ways that I didn't feel, you know, cared for in whatever way. And it's just all coming up for me much later as an adult. I'm 23 now, but I've been on this like self-love and self-healing journey, and I just feel like this book for me gave me a lot of insight about the relationships with the adults in my life that were, you know, pivotal in taking care of me, and maybe some of the pitfalls of those relationships and those dynamics, but ultimately that there is like a way forward. And I feel like the story, or not the story, but I feel like the book was really positive in a way. It was very helpful, and it provided like actionable ways for you to look back at your past experiences and analyze whether you were in some of these dynamics and how to break certain habits and behaviors that are maybe not the healthiest way to move forward. I feel like I'm speaking in really abstract terms, but it's just like, it was just a good reading experience. I think that if you had any sort of reaction to the title of the book, then you should give it a shot. And it's just a very interesting, insightful read. I would recommend it for anybody who's on like a self-reflective, self-healing journey. Like, I think it's a worthwhile read. And the last thing I ended up reading in August was some Shakespeare. I read Antony and Cleopatra. This was a play by Shakespeare that I had never read before, and I think it might be one of my favorites thus far. I mean, I don't know if anything will ever like top Romeo and Juliet for me. As cliche as that answer may be, I love Romeo and Juliet. I love Shakespeare in general. But yeah, R+J is definitely my favorite. But Antony and Cleopatra is definitely a close second. And I ended up listening to the audiobook through my library. And the audiobook like production was amazing. So that definitely aided in my experience. But it was just really great. It was so good. And I do want to read some more Shakespeare soon. I am really busy with my coursework right now because I am in my final semester of college. So it's like a lot going on for me, but if I can squeeze in some time, I would love to read some more Shakespeare because there are many plays that I have yet to read and I would like to. Yeah, so that's all I read in August, and let's get into September. So in September, I completed 7 things. So the first one that I'm going to tell you about is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, and this book is about 2 characters. It's from the perspective of 1 character, but it's kind of a journey through the relationship between this woman named June and a friend that she had, or more like a frenemy that she had named Athena. And so they were both authors, and June is a not very successful author. She did not have the best debut experience, and she's really been struggling through her publishing career. And she has this friend Athena, who is like this literary wonderkin doing amazing things. Pretty much what happens is that Athena dies, and June decides to steal Athena's manuscript and publish it as her own. And this rest of the story is pretty much a journey through that experience that she has. And it's really about the entitlement that she feels. It's like a satirical look into the publishing industry and the way that it functions. And so it's really interesting. It's very compulsively readable. June, the main character, is a very deeply unlikable person. It's a little heavy-handed in terms of the messaging a little bit. So if you're someone that likes a more subtle approach, then maybe this won't be the book for you. But for me, it was very compulsively readable. It was interesting. I think it worked a lot for me because I am somebody that is heavily like on book Twitter and on TikTok and things like that, so I'm really enmeshed in the book community, and this is like a very satirical look at the book community and how it works and like how people get canceled and the discourse that exists around certain books and book acquisitions and things like that. For me, it just worked. I liked it a lot and I gave it 4 stars. Okay, so the next book that I ended up reading was called A Shot in the Dark by Victoria Lee, and Victoria Lee is an author who I have read and really loved prior. I read the Fever Wake duology by them, which is a queer YA sci-fi dystopian series. So good. I loved it so much. And I was so shocked when I heard that Victoria Lee was publishing an adult romance, and I had to read it. So this adult romance is about a character named Ellie. Ellie is an artist, a photographer to be specific, and she is entering this like graduate photography program for the summer in New York. And so she's going back to New York, and being back in New York really brings up a lot of emotions for her because she fled New York when she was 18. She was a part of like the Orthodox Jewish community, and she also was struggling with a drug addiction. And so being back in New York just kind of brings up a lot of feelings for her regarding her religion and also her addiction and like her recovery essentially. And so that's going on, but also the first night that she's back in New York, she hooks up with this guy named Wyatt, and come to find out, Wyatt is actually one of the professors in this photography program that she is attending for the summer. So it turns out to be this sort of like forbidden student-teacher dynamic going on. But let me make something clear to you, because I think that the way that the synopsis sold it to me made it feel a little bit like the focus of the story was going to be on this kind of like salacious student teacher thing that was going on. But honestly, it's not true, because he's not actually her teacher. Like, he just works in the same department that she works in. So I mean, there's still some, I guess, like ethical dilemma there for some people, sure, but it's not exactly how you might be imagining it if you hear somebody say, oh, this is a student teacher romance. Like, it just doesn't have that exact vibe that I was looking for when I heard that it was going to be a student-teacher romance, but that's okay. I thought that it was a really interesting story in terms of Ellie's journey through her recovery and through reconciling with her past and like the mistakes that she's made, and also reconciling with her religion. And so I felt like that storyline about her like reconnecting to her religion and to herself and to her art and all of that was very good and like moving. But I can't say this was my favorite romance. I just feel like the dynamic between her and Wyatt was like, it was nice, and he provides her with a lot of support and things like that. So I'm happy that they are happy together, but I don't think it's my favorite romance that I've ever read. But I think as a story, it's still like, it still was good. It still worked. I would give it maybe like a 3.75 or a 4-star. Like, it was pretty cool. So then I was in the mood kind of for more of a paranormal romance sort of vibe, and so I picked up this book called The Tenant by Katrina Jackson, and this is about this guy named Noel. He ends up inheriting a house from his dearly departed aunt. And so he ends up inheriting the house, and in the will it says that he has to like remodel the house and get it up to code and like restore it because it is a historical site in the town in New Orleans where the book is set. So he's trying to move in and remodel this house, but he's encountering some trouble because there is a ghost that lives there, and this ghost Ruby is sort of terrorizing him, but also lusting after him because she thinks that he's really hot. And it's interesting. It's a really interesting story because on one hand it's a little bit silly. Noel is definitely a silly hero. He gives me a strong himbo vibe. I love him deeply. Okay, so Ruby, she's a ghost from like the 1920s, 1910s, and so as a result of that, her storyline, and when we get flashbacks to when she was alive, that does deal with some of the racial tensions that she was experiencing in the South at that time as like a landowner, and the stuff that she was dealing with regarding the house that used to belong to her but has since gone to the family of Noel and his people. And the story is kind of unraveling that mystery of how she lost the house and everything like that. And it does deal with some of that, but like I said, it's not the main focus, but it is an interesting element of the storyline. And I think it was just really well done because it created this really layered experience where we're having kind of this interesting sort of sensual romance, erotic haunting situation going on, but then also it really has something to say about like historical race relations. And I know that that may not be what everybody's looking for when they're reading a paranormal romance, but it definitely worked for me, and I feel like it sort of hit a similar note for me that Interview with a Vampire, the TV show on AMC, has done for me. I really liked it. I would love to see more Black paranormal stories just being written and given their due, and I just enjoyed it a whole lot. It was really great, okay? So I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for a paranormal romance that is spicy, but it has like some depth to it. It's interesting, okay? Please check it out. And then I read this other paranormal story, and it's called Exodus 20 verse 3, I believe. And anyway, this is by Freitas Moon, and this is a short story about a dude named Diego. He's doing an odd construction job, and he gets like referred to help remodel this church in the middle of nowhere. And this is about him and like the sexual tension that blooms between him and the dude that he's remodeling the church with. And this is like biblically accurate angel erotica, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. Okay, so then I read this novella called The Prince and His Dearest Guards because I was looking for like a fantasy romance to read, and this is also a novella. It was really short, so it didn't end up providing me with like exactly what I was looking for, but that's my fault because I didn't read the page count before I downloaded the book. But anyway, it's about this like prince. He's like 20 years old. Since his 20th birthday has just passed, he has to do some sort of ritual that all crowned princes need to do, where they need to go and like battle a beast of some kind. And so while he's about to go on this journey, he gets assigned these two bodyguards to like go with him on the journey, and this is about him being super duper thirsty for the guards, and the guards take him to Pound Town pretty much. There's really not much else to say about it. Then I read this historical poly romance. It's called The Rake, His Patron, and Their Muse, and it's about pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's about this guy who's like a playwright, and he is known for his rakish tendencies, and he's pretty much a hoe, and he's a philanderer doing his thing pretty much. And he has this patron who's like a super wealthy guy that, you know, helps him fund his lifestyle so he can create his plays and all that good stuff. They end up going on a retreat to the countryside where they meet this woman who's working at like the inn that they're staying at, and this is about all three of them finding love and lust together. It was okay. It was like 3 stars. I don't have anything bad to say about it, but it didn't like change my life necessarily, but it was cool. And finally, I read Hostile Takeover by Christina C. Jones, and this is a billionaire marriage of convenience romance. So we have this character named Nalani, and her family business, she has like a grocery store chain pretty much, and her family business is in some deep deep trouble because her father has been mismanaging things, misappropriating funds, and he's also sold the land that their main like flagship store is built on. So he's caused a whole bunch of trouble for her. This billionaire dude swoops in and he's like, hey, if you marry me, I will help you get your, you know, your title to the land back and all this other type of stuff. And she's like, okay, you know, maybe. So they signed this really intense marriage contract that's going to assure that he will give her all of these like financial gains and help her fix the business, and in exchange they'll be married. And yeah, like, it's a marriage of convenience romance. I think, like most marriage of convenience romances, sometimes the stuff don't always make a whole lot of sense, but I really liked the guy. Even though he was a little bit of an alpha male, and alpha males are not usually my thing, I felt like he was really intense in a fun way, and I liked that a whole lot. He was very much deeply obsessed with her. He was very strongly a my wife, my wife, my wife kind of guy, and he was very protective, and I loved that because she is in some danger. There's a whole lot of stuff happening, some criminal things going on. It's a lot. I enjoyed it though. I thought it was cool. So yeah, those are all the books that I read in the past 2 months, and those are my reviews, my thoughts on them. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye you guys. Mwah.